After this, there is no turning back. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more. Do you know what I'm talking about?
This is that YouthSpin show. This is that YouthSpin show. This is that YouthSpin show.
Good night. This program is sponsored by the Department of Youth and Culture, and right now we have here in the room with us Mr. Banks, the party leader for the Anguilla United Front.
Good evening, my name is Rhina Meade. I'm a youth ambassador, and we are doing a special program called the Manifesto Special this evening, where we have all political leaders and independent candidates coming to share their vision for Anguilla for the next 5 years. In our hot seat is our Mr. Banks. We'll allow him to introduce himself. And
I'm Victor Banks. I'm the leader of the Anguilla United Front. I've been in politics for 35 years. I've been elected for 28 of those years, and we're vying for the election next week. And we're hoping to do well because we're operating on our record and the team of candidates that we have who we believe are very capable of presenting that record. So we're comfortable in being here and glad to know that the young people, the youth ambassadors, are concerned about Anguilla's future and giving us an opportunity to talk about our vision. I understand it's the Manifesto Special. I can't say that I'm conversant with every aspect of the manifesto in the way that I should answer all the questions in every area. But I've been involved in the process of preparing the manifesto, as all members of the team have been, and I hope that I would have gleaned something during that process.
we're quite sure you handle it very well.
I'm very pleased. I must say, I'm very pleased that you put out the manifesto so early. It was one of the forerunners in releasing your manifesto.
It should have been early, actually.
It was very lengthy. So, but it was a good read, and it's promising. It has a lot of hope for Anguilla in the future. The manifesto has been the AUF manifesto has been described as ambitious and very detailed plan for Anguilla for the next 5 years. Some perhaps have said that it may be slightly over-ambitious or unrealistic, given that there's a lot of goals and projects intended to be realized while still proposing tax relief in the short term. What would you respond to such?
Well, first of all, our manifesto is for 2015 to 2020 and beyond. The world doesn't happen in 5-year windows. It happens over extended periods. And things overlap between administrations, whether they're from one party or the other. Other party, when it comes in power, has to carry on in some way the projects and proposals started by the party before that. So there are things in our manifesto which may appear to be overly ambitious in the short term, but certainly in the long term, these are achievable things, and you have to start somewhere in the things that you vision for Anguilla. We have a long-term vision for Anguilla, and we have a plan of what we expect to see within given time frames within the manifesto. You talk about the fact that we want to give tax relief. Now, the issue of taxes relates to the kind of yield that you can get in the country. As you know, I see on your shirt the London School of Economics and Political Science, so obviously you're conversant with these issues. And the fact is that the country must generate revenue to meet its demands. In 2004 to 2008, with the same tax regime that we had before 2010, we were able to generate revenue to meet the demands of the country, also generate and have a surplus, and also participate in capital projects and development, also deliver on training and other areas of the aspects of the economy and the community with that tax regime. In 2008, towards the latter part of 2008, the world went into a recession, and as a consequence, a number of the projects in Anguilla failed. it meant that we were not able to generate the same kind of revenue that we were generating earlier. Fortunately, we were able to put aside reserves. But like in a normal household situation, it is advisable to have a savings. But you cannot have a savings which anticipates that you don't work for a year. So obviously, you will plan to put aside maybe enough savings to last you for 6 months, but you wouldn't anticipate having to put aside savings to last you for 2 years. So at some point it runs out. So similarly, when you get in those kind of situations and the recession holds, you continue not to have a job, you will find yourself in a position where you have to do other creative things to meet the demands to your family and to yourself. That is similar to what happens in government. In 2010, the government came into office in the midst of a recession, and Anguilla being a vulnerable and open economy would have been impacted by what happens in the rest of the world. So as a consequence, they had come up with different ideas. One of the ideas they came up with that we have to change the tax regime, that we have to introduce new taxes to meet the demands of the economy. When in fact, my view is that we should have been encouraging more investment, that the government should have been spending more money, creating jobs and business opportunities for people. And in this way, they would be able to find the revenue to develop the country over a given window of opportunity. They allowed the idea of balancing the budget to be the main focus, whereas the main focus should have been creating more investment in the economy and working along with persons in the private sector, not in an adversarial way, but in a partnership to achieve some of these objectives.
Thank you, Mr. Banks. Just to follow on from some points that you made. I know in your manifesto you put forward that you want to do some immediate relief from the interim stabilization levy once you come in office. And within 12 months, you want it completely removed. You also talked about the government should be deficit spending during a downturn to stimulate the economy rather than taxing the people to balance the budget. How would you propose to find these additional revenues from borrowing if you have to follow certain borrowing guidelines and if your potential lenders would not look favorably at a negative budget?
Well, the first part of your question was...
I was asking, what would you replace the ISL with?
Okay. The first part of the question was the interim stabilization levy was one of the things that our government promised that it would remove within 12 months. And the reason why you should remove a tax that is bad is because you should have fair and equitable taxes on the board. The interim stabilization levy is a bad tax. It is a bad tax because it is unfair to the taxpayers. A number of taxpayers who pay because they're working in particular jobs, and others who don't pay because they're not in those formal employee-employee relationships, and a lot of them don't pay because they're self-employed. So taxes should be paid by all citizens across the board based on their earnings and their ability to pay. The other part of that tax which makes it unfair is the fact that employers have to pay tax on behalf of their employees. The employers should be paying tax on behalf of themselves. So if a company has 10 employees and it has to pay a 3% tax for every employee, that means that the more people they employ, the more the tax burden will be. The tax burden should be relate to how well the business is doing. If the business is, just like the worker, if the worker is making more money, the percentage of tax yields more revenue. If the business is making money of a certain amount of return on the investment, then they should be taxed on that return on the investment. If they're losing money, they should not be paying taxes on their losses necessarily, right? But in this scenario, whether they make money or they don't make money, they still have to pay tax for the employees who work for them. That is not fair. What it does is encourages employers, the business sector, to cut back on the amount of people they employ, to cut back on their wage bill. And this is not a positive thing. And the tax may yield some dollars and cents, but it is not equitable. It should not discourage business from expanding, right? So these are the issues. That's the reason why I feel that not only the fact of trying to remove a tax to say that you're doing something that is positive for the community, but to remove the tax because it's unfair.
So do you therefore support corporate income tax? Because that would then therefore only
Well,
tax businesses.
Anguilla never had corporate income tax. But if you're going to have a levy that you apply to workers, and if you maintain the levy, the other aspect of that would be to have a tax on the persons who are employed. So the employees, as well as the employer, should pay tax, but on the basis of their performance as a business, on the basis of their profit line, rather on the basis of the number of people they employ. So you ask the question, would I introduce a corporate tax? I have not thought about it in that way. I thought that we should put in place taxes that are capable of creating or generating the revenue that can meet the needs of the community. We don't have an income tax. I would assume when we decide that that is something that we should put in place, a corporate tax will come in place at the same time. So it is a question of whether that is the way we're going to go, whether we're going to have more consumption-related taxes or more income-related taxes.
Sorry, I don't want to put this too heavily about taxes, but also, while we're done, what are your thoughts on introducing a VAT, a value-added tax?
I think that a lot of people don't have a clear understanding about VAT. It's called by a number of different names. Value-added tax, you got sales tax, you got government tax, government sales tax, a range of different names. And VAT is not a one-size-fits-all. In an economy that does not have a lot of manufacturing, it is totally different tax to what would apply in a place like Anguilla. And I believe that having a VAT, value-added tax or government sales tax, I think that's the best thing to call it. Having a government sales tax in Anguilla would probably be the best thing for businesses, because every business in Anguilla, once they're in the retail sector or even in the services sector, when they import goods for retail, one of the upfront payment that they have to make, in addition to the cost of the goods, is the tax, the duty, right? If you have the duty, it takes away a certain percentage of the money that you have for
Cash on
investment,
Yeah.
up front. No. If you have a value-added tax, you only pay the tax when you sell the goods, you sell the services. And when you have a value-added tax, when you bring stuff in, if they go badly and they're not fit for sale, then you don't find yourself stuck with having paid tax or custom duty on that item. If you have perishable stuff and half of it goes spoiled, you would not have paid that tax on that duty on those goods. So it creates a better situation for the businesses in the retail sector. However, if you put a value-added government sales tax in place, you've got to reduce duty to mainly an administrative fee. Administrative
There we go.
fee, yeah? You have to reduce it to that.
Yeah.
So that you pay for the processing of goods coming in and so forth. So if you have a value-added tax or government sales tax, the duty or the administrative tax should be down to 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%, or something of that nature, to make it reasonable. You cannot have customs duty as well as a government sales tax.
No, that
at
would
the
be
same
like a
place.
duplicate, yeah.
So, but that is what a lot of people think. It would make it better for businesses. Now, the question is asked, how do you monitor it, given the fact that the accounting systems of most businesses are not geared towards paying income tax or corporate tax and so forth. The way you have to monitor it is that you have got to retool a number of the persons who work in customs and inland revenue to deal with those areas. You have to make it a requirement that businesses keep records. And the other aspect of that is that persons who do not import For example, you go to St. Martin, you buy an item, you have to pay the full customs duty. So the persons who benefit from the government sales tax would be persons who have a license from government to import.
Okay, yeah, I see how that works.
You have a license to import, therefore you are able to avoid the duty. But when you sell, you pay the sales tax. That would encourage a number of things as well. Another way that you can get away from that is by putting in place bonded warehouses. A bonded warehouse does not have to be a specific place. It could be a room in your business that you have a key for, and the government has a key for. You only pay duty when you take those things out of that room, that bond, that storage, and bring it out for resale to the public. So that's another way of dealing with that if you're concerned about the upfront costs. But I'm saying government sales tax is not necessarily a bad thing.
Okay, great. There are several priorities that jumped out at us within the manifesto that I'm sure excites a lot of our young constituents, such as athletic facilities, performing arts center, school career opportunities. I want you to just choose one of these projects that you think are one of the things that are going to be timely, that you're going to introduce as soon as you hit the ground running.
Well, the first
that you think would really encourage our disenfranchised young persons.
Can I look at them?
Yes, you can go. Any one of them that you could pick through. You said that you would introduce some athletic
you're
fields
talking
in the
about facilities?
Yes, facilities. So choosing any one, they're all priorities, but I can't imagine that.
I think one of the critical areas for Anguilla right now is to make sure that there are recreational and sports facilities throughout the island, and that there are formal centers in every, I don't want to say every village, every community, where young people can gather in an organized way and do certain things. So I think it needs to begin with dealing with sports and recreation and after-school education situations. So the first thing that I would want to do coming out as a government would be start looking at community centers and community councils, and as an aspect of that, moving in the other programs like sports centers, like playing fields and so forth. We, when in government, had acquired over 25 acres of land in the various communities to do just that. And this is a program that we need to continue and roll out much more actively into the villages and communities.
A lot of our young persons are saying that they're quite dissatisfied with the grass tracks for track and field. The courts, they're saying they may be hard on their knees. So is there any specific project that
we acquired 17.5 acres in the quarter for an Olympic stadium, track and field, and Olympic-sized swimming pool in that area. That is a project that started, and the land is acquired for that already.
Yes, and funding, I imagine.
Funding has got to come, right?
Yes.
That is something that we could move forward with aggressively, because there are organizations and groups and even people who are investors in this island who you can draw upon, because I firmly believe that people who invest money in Anguilla would want to see a stable social sector. And if you ask them to contribute to certain projects within Anguilla, you can get some support for it.
Yes.
At the end of the day, if you create wholesome young people, you keep them out of trouble and make sure that the investment of persons who come here is secure. So that is a very positive aspect of that. So I believe that the social sector, moving into community councils and community centers and various areas, should be one of the first order of business for government.
Excellent.
Mr. Banks, in your manifesto, you speak about forming greater links with the OECS and the Caribbean community.
And I said the neighborhood as well, right?
And the neighborhood.
Yeah.
What benefits do you propose might originate from deeper links with these?
Well, first of all, Anguilla is not, no man is an island.
Correct.
No island is a region. And the world operates in regions and territories for the most part. And you really cannot, a small island like Anguilla, really have an impact internationally and globally if you don't have relationships within the region which you operate. You can begin with sub-region arrangements, and I think that it is a no-brainer that there should be more relationships between Anguilla, St. Martin, St. Bart's, St. Kitts, Nevis, Statia, all those islands in this very sub-region. There should be definitely relationship between St. Anguilla and St. Martin, St. Martin, because it's one economy. There's movement between Anguilla and St. Martin every 45 minutes, but actually it's probably every 15 minutes if you count all the movements that take place, not only sea movements but also air movements as well. Not only the ferry services but also people with private boats and yachts and fast ferries and the work. So it is an area which we have to develop the relationships, and there should be more interaction between leaders from Anguilla and both sides of St. Martin. There should be an ongoing relationship. There should actually be a regional, sub-regional council that deals with common issues affecting the fisheries.
So your focus in the near term is more deeper linked with St. Martin, St. Martin.
Well, I'm going to roll it out because I think in the OECS and in OECS we have already begun certain things that we have a common judiciary.
The banking system as well.
We have the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank that has been working for some time. We have aviation. We have pharmaceutical purchasing. We have the disease, Cartec. We have CARDI, the agricultural sector, a whole range of regional agencies that are doing effective work. And agencies and organizations like the European Union, the OPEC groups, the OECD and all those organizations have an interest in our region mainly because of international financial services and terrorism and anti-terrorism finance, and all those issues are part of their interest in our region. And when we want to get support from them in specific areas, they don't respond necessarily to an island like Anguilla. They would like to respond to a region. They like to respond to, for example, we are overseas territories. BVI, Montserrat, Cayman Islands, Turks and Caicos, we are all overseas territories in this region, Bermuda. There are things that we can achieve together. For example, a forensic unit to serve those five countries that I mentioned, to fight crime and to deal with criminal issues.
There's economies of scale in unity.
There are a lot of stuff, of course. And there's some areas of integration that we're not happy about in places like Anguilla.
Like
one of them is
CSME?
Immigration, those kind of things, CSME and all those kind
Having
of
to
issues.
trade with them and paying higher tariffs if you join.
because we don't trade a lot. A lot of the things we do involve
Our main trading partners
services.
tend to be the U.S. also.
Okay, the U.S. So that is the main difference, right? So we can have a cake and eat it too, but we can have what we call functional cooperation between these areas of cooperation where it's mutually beneficial. Those are things that we can benefit from more and deeper regional arrangements. In addition to that, we come from a region with a common history. We are one people from the same, probably came here on the same slave ships, right? So there's common culture. And if you want to grow a population, which is a very critical issue, we would want to grow population with people that we understand are more easily assimilated into our culture. So all these things go together to make it a critical undertaking for any government to start building those relationships in areas we believe we have their mutual benefits.
Excellent. We also saw that you proposed to also increase visitor arrival numbers to Anguilla quite significantly over the next 5 years. And specifically, you would like to propose to increase air access ratio to Anguilla by 33%. Using the numbers presented in the manifesto, we're expecting about 56,000 air arrivals compared to currently we just maybe handling under 15,000. How do you propose that we get the extra seats and so on to facilitate this?
Well, the key area with a place like Anguilla is because of the size of a tourism plant, we probably have 1,500 available rooms not of all of the same level, but we have about less than 40% occupancy. This means that we're not really utilizing the rooms we have over the year. It means that we have to promote Anguilla more. If one of the issues is access, it is an issue that we must focus on very aggressively. We need to be able, for anybody in the United States or Europe or wherever they come from and want to visit Anguilla, to be able to get online and book a flight directly into Anguilla. Not in the same airline, but be able to make the connections directly in Anguilla. What that requires is either an airline that has dedicated service coming to Anguilla, as we had with the American Eagle, with LIAT, Rhina, and those other agencies. We're having more difficulty in being able to attract airlines in Anguilla. It's either because we have not been negotiating properly, or because the interests of the carriers that come into our area do not include servicing places like Anguilla.
Well, we can't get direct flights. We can't get direct flights because of the length of the air.
Well, we can get direct flights coming. We can get some direct flights.
Commercial.
No commercial direct flights except it's coming from the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Okay. But because of the size of the airport, I believe that the size of the airport is important. But having an airport does not mean that you have good access. In St. Lucia, they built a brand new airport in the north, I think it is, Hunara, and that scarcely has the kind of access that would really justify that facility in that area. In Anguilla, I think the key thing that we need is be able to hub in to various places in the region. A good hub from Puerto Rico, a good hub from St. Martin, from Antigua, from Miami even, is what is critical. If you could get a 737 or an aircraft of that ilk flying directly in to Anguilla on a given period, that would be a very good thing in terms of access. But more importantly is the fact that if we cannot get airlines from out of the region to deal with our access issues, we in Anguilla, working with government and the private sector, need to facilitate the development of an Anguillan airline. We've had Anguillan airlines in the past. We need to have a formal Anguillan airline.
Would that be
connects
like a public-private partnership?
Public-private partnership for sure.
Trans-Anguilla.
Yeah, like Trans-Anguilla expanding. Anguilla service expanding to that level. What you really need is a 19-seater aircraft operating between Anguilla and St. Martin. You can move to a 34-seater.
Because you don't
as
want
you
to
grow,
scare the visitors when they come off of the big, huge planes and then have to go on a little mosquito coming
definitely. And you want it to be seamless, the transition from St. Martin. You come in, you book your flight in New York, and it takes you straight into Anguilla.
So it's not an immediate plan of the AUF to increase the size of the airport, the airstrip.
That is not necessary.
Okay.
In the short term,
Okay.
it is important to have. We have the possibility of expanding the airport another 1,000 feet. We have 600 additional feet available that has already been acquired by the government of Anguilla, and you have other options going to the west that could expand your airport capacity. So these are ways in which we can really improve access. And right now we are spending money trying to guarantee flights coming to Anguilla, right? I'd rather spend that money on an Anguillan airline, if it were possible. So these are things that we need to think of moving forward in the future. Yeah.
In your manifesto, one of your principal strategic objectives is to determine and implement a strategic plan to strengthen the indigenous banking system in Anguilla. Obviously, we know that right now we have a couple issues.
Right.
The ACCB maintains conservatorship over our local banks. As a potential Minister of Finance come into office, that would be one of the immediate situations that have to be dealt with. How would you propose such?
Well, first of all, we need to understand what the problem is. And as far as I'm concerned, the critical issue affecting the banking sector right now is over the past 6 years, we have not had any economic growth. So persons have not been able to meet their loan commitments to the bank. As a consequence, we have a lot of non-performing loans. If there are regulatory issues involved, or if there are staffing and management issues involved, that is one thing. But on the other side of that equation is that the economy itself has to perform better so that people can meet their obligations to the bank. So we have to consider whether or not the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank in this period did the right things, because we had high expectations when on August 12th or 13, 2013, they came into Anguilla and decided to take over the indigenous banking sector. We had hoped that there would be interventions that would make it work, but we also expected that the economy at the same time would grow in a way that people would have more jobs, better jobs, and ability to pay, that businesses would be able to thrive, and so forth. So a lot has to do with the wider economy, as well as the issues of the banking sector as well. There are persons who say that people made loans that they could not pay, but hopes were high during that period. People were making money, people had several jobs, and there are a number of people who don't always make room for disappointment. You know? And when you're in business, you shouldn't be risk averse, but you should take calculated risk in the businesses that you undertake. And that element of restraint and moderation is important.
I think
making management decisions.
also in stimulating the economy, because obviously we're right now on the tails of a recession. The banks play a key role as an intermediary in transit funds between parties who have and parties who have profitable investment without funds. I think one of our issues perhaps is that the banks are lacking in this ability to provide that intermediary function.
They need that kind of support.
Would you support recapitalizing the banks?
Well, I will support any solution that ensures that Anguillans remain participants in the bank, the indigenous banks. The indigenous bank have 3,500 shareholders. Any decision, any solution for the situation that they now have must involve Anguillans in the decision making and the solution, as well as after that solution. They should have an ownership role in the banking sector. The indigenous banking sector served us well. They played the role of community banks because they understand the community in which they were operating, and people got to understand the banking system, and the bankers got to understand the culture of the various persons, various customers of the bank.
All the players on the ground.
It's just like a credit card company. If you have a good payment,
relations,
you get a grade A. Doesn't mean that you really have the resources, but you will work harder to make sure that you meet your payment demands. So.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Banks.
Thank you very much
for sharing with us and really sharing your vision.
It went fast.
Yes. So do you have any final comments that you want to share before you
first
leave?
of all, I am flattered by the fact that young people took the time to read all the manifestos. Some of them were shorter than others. Some of them were more detailed.
Yours was a very lengthy one.
I'm sorry that I put you through so much homework, but you're just fresh from university, so you still have that capacity. But we see our manifesto as a contract with the people of Anguilla. There's not everything in this manifesto that we'll achieve in 5 years. But at least it puts us on the way to achieving the longer vision, which I think every country, every nation has and must aspire to. So this is where we are, and we hope that young people will really continue to have an interest in what's happening in the country.
We also hope that you would engage us more going forward.
That's right.
Yes.
Definitely. That is a commitment that we have made, and that is a commitment that we hope to keep.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
It was wonderful speaking with you.